are the Cowboys really not a playoff team? Because, and again, we came into the year, Hunter, very much like bullish on the fact that this Cowboys roster was not what it was, and the Cowboys fans shouldn't expect that to be the case. However, I think we can both agree that we still expect them to be a playoff team and still toothing and clawing every week and at least showing that they're a competent roster and a competently established team. But what we're seeing this year, frankly, just so far is not the case at all. And it's kind of what we've been talking about all year. What are the Cowboys? But I think that they're kind of answering our question more and more each week. And the question is to answer the question at the least, is that they're incredibly inconsistent and undercoached. So let me just get into some of my points here. But before I do, I want to ask, am I overreacting or what do you think?
No, I don't think you're overreacting at all. I think that what they've put out has been shit, and I don't see how it gets much better.
No, 100%. So let's get into the facts here. I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but it's something we all need to keep bringing up because sometimes you need to be held accountable for stuff you say when it's ridiculous, right? Jerry Jones came in the year talking about all in, but everybody under the sun could see the operation and say to themselves, I don't know if this is being all in because again, you're losing guys and you're not replacing them with better talent. We're in a situation now where again, we look at the Cowboys and you're saying to yourself, like, the defense is just man. But again, I want to be crystal clear before I even go on my rant.
Third worst in the league.
I think you could sit here and put it much more on Mike Zimmer than anybody else. And the fact that his scheme is now outdated. And not only that, they just don't have the personnel to fit his scheme. Like that objectively is how I view the situation. But it doesn't change the fact that the product that we're seeing on the field is the product that we're seeing on the field every single week. Right. So it's kind of like there's this expectation and then there's this reality. You can't sit here and tell the fans you're all in when very clearly you made a lot of bad decisions in a row now, Jerry. Like that's the thing is, you and Cowboys fans would agree. Jerry Jones loves to always get up there and put it on everyone else. I would love to just hear him sit up there once and say, yeah, you know what? It comes down to my decision making. And sometimes and multiple times, I have made really abhorrent decisions over the past however many years, because that is the bottom line for the Cowboys at this point. And Cowboys fans would agree with that over and over. Let's move into the second point here. The Cowboys, again, so let's get into the offense first. They're averaging 21 points per game, which is 19th in the league. And when you have as much money invested in this offense as you do, and especially in your quarterback, to put it as frankly as possible, that's just absolutely unacceptable. Now, again, on top of that, they only have 10 touchdowns that are scored this season. That is tied for 23rd in the league. Now, this is where it gets atrocious, and this is where it becomes incredibly problematic, as everybody knows. Look, 77.2 rushing yards per game this year, which is dead last in the league. And as we talk about every week, Hunter, more and more fans are coming around to it, more and more people are realizing it's not a passing league right now. It is a run the ball, establish it, chew the clock, and find your shots in between league. That's what we've shifted to, and it will shift back eventually because we know for the longest time in the cover 3 heavy shells, it was a passing league. Well, we're shifting back, and now it's a running league. You can't run the ball. You can't do anything. So, again, I want to be clear, 77.2 rushing yards a game. They can't run the ball. And on top of that, they are running in between the tackles. It was 59% of the time. And so the problem with that is, though, the entire, and this is kind of the thing that where this was the first thing we were kind of in on at the beginning of the year, Hunter. The Cowboys O-line, we knew that it was like unestablished. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, you're in a position where we just didn't know what to expect, right? It's kind of like, where are we going with this? And we kind of have seen very quickly that the bottom line is that the Cowboys line is just unfortunately not very good anymore. They've made a drastic shift over the years, the last couple years, where they went from being an absolutely elite mauling unit to being a shadow of their former selves. And yes, it's because plenty of personnel has changed. And it's because a lot of things in the scheme have changed per se. But on top of that, it's just the bottom line that the O-line isn't performing up to standard. So, it's not just all on Dak. It's not all on anybody. It's multiple things at once.
It's one of the worst offensive lines in the league in terms of pass blocking and run blocking. I think the thing that is frustrating is they do have talent on that line. It just is underperforming. And to kind of
definitely do.
To kind of go back, like we all knew the running back position was a problem, and they went out and got Dalvin Cook and Zeke. Like your O-line's underperforming. You have a very questionable running back room. We kind of knew what Mike McCarthy was at this point, and now the Dallas defense, who was pretty decent last year, is the third worst in the league. In a division where you have an extremely talented yet underperforming Eagles team, a Giants team that you feel is very feisty, and a Commanders team that's lighting up the league, I would say in this division, in the NFC East, the Cowboys are the team I have the least amount of confidence in.
No, it's crazy because that's actually how it shifted to. Because to your point, objectively, yeah, the Giants I have the least amount of faith in, but at least I have faith that the Giants are going to show up and make it a fight every week and that they're going to do something surprising every once in a while. With the Cowboys, it's like the opposite. But and in the wrong way. Here's the thing, too, I want to get into next, Hunter, because this is where it becomes really problematic. As everything we just said about the offense is true, the funny part and the sad part is that the offense isn't the biggest of this team's problems, and it's quite far from it. Because the real issue comes in when we start to talk about the defense. We're looking at 356.5 yards per game allowed this year, which is 24th in the league. But let's be clear, that discrepancy between 24th and 32nd is not very big. It's kind of like when you go below 22, 23, you are in an F tier, and it's just pretty close from everyone else. All right, and then from there, 19 touchdowns allowed this year, which is 30th in the league, and again, to be clear, 30th is in a bad way, not like, oh, like it's you're the bottom of the league, not like second worst person. We could put it in other terms. 143.2 rushing yards per game allowed, 26th in the league. So to contrast that between the offense and the defense, you can't run the ball and you can't stop the other team running the ball. That's a recipe for never having the ball in your hands, and you're getting way less possessions than the other team. Opponent's time to throw. Now, this is the worst one of them all. The average opponent's time to throw is 2.9 seconds, tied 28th in the league. But again, the discrepancy between 28th and 32nd is a milliseconds, right? 1.1 second. They are abhorrently bad at getting to the quarterback this year. And it was the thing is this. It was
especially with Micah and DeMarcus Lawrence out now.
I'll say, and that's the thing is, but it was still basically this bad, even with them in, which is where it gets incredibly concerning. Back to the fact that this scheme is just outdated and the scheme is not doing what it needs to do. That's the bottom line as far as the defense goes. And to the point of to really just put it into one big pot and let it simmer, not to make this rhyme, but it's on Mike Zimmer. Like that's the thing is we're not going to sit here and put on anybody else because we saw Dan Quinn last year with this defense. And yes, they've lost some key players, but I'm not going to sit here and act like it's like a completely new defense. You still have your key players. And when you go from having a good defense, I might say they were great, but a pretty good defense, and then you just go to being that sounds bad, man, but a garbage unit within 4 months, 5 months, there is a point where you have to sit there and say, It's on the coordinator, and back to Jerry Jones, it's on the decisions Jerry Jones is making. And my final point here, Hunter, and I'm going to pass it over to you. You do have Darren Bland to return this week after the bye week, and then Parsons with a solid chance to return. And the bye week can do wonders for teams. We know this. That's objective. But I think the thing is this, the system in place is probably going to overshadow the positive impact of these players returning, as we've already seen. And I just don't know how much that Duran and Micah can really change everything that's going on in the field for the Cowboys.
I guess my thing too, though, is Dobbs, when you pay Dak Prescott $60 million a year, and he is currently the 24th quarterback in EPA per dropback around the likes of Andy Dalton, Gardner Minshew, Trevor Lawrence, and Aaron Rodgers. Like, not to discredit what Rodgers has done in his career, but we know this year has not been the greatest. There are some fundamental issues with the Cowboys, and how I'm looking at the Cowboys this year is they're very bare bones, right? Like, they have CeeDee Lamb, they have Dak Prescott, and they have, Jake Ferguson, however you want to align him. They have a couple pieces on the line. They have Micah Parsons. They have a couple corners. But, when it gets to depth and when it gets to, other players just being, decent and average, it just feels like they're not there. It doesn't feel like a cohesive team. And the reality is, Mike McCarthy probably should have been gone. I do believe that if they he will be fired probably in season, because losing that way to the Lions on Jerry Jones' birthday at home, where Jerry Jones basically said it felt like they were having fun at our expense, dude, you're not going to last much longer if you have another game even close to that. So the Cowboys just feel like, but the issue with the Cowboys, though, is their good players are so good that, I mean, they're going to wind up around 500. And you could always then do the mental gymnastics. Well, if we just do this. And it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those teams that it clearly needs kind of like a culture reset. And Mike McCarthy is just not the guy right now.
No, absolutely not. And to kind of like piggyback off that though, and here's the problem that I have with, it's not even the problem. Matter of fact, here's the thing that we've been talking about for years, and I love how fortunate the NFL is that they always they give us rebounds where we can just keep talking about it. Hunter, it's almost like I swear it's almost like that when you pay guys one third of your entire salary cap, and then you pay another guy like 1/5 of your entire salary cap, all of the sudden you have no money to spend in other important spots. It's almost like football is the biggest team game on the entire earth, and it's almost like you have to spread your resources evenly unless you have a guy like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes. But ironically enough, those guys all are not worried about being the highest paid guys in the league because they understand that they need everyone else around them to do their part as well, or else you can't build a dynasty type structure. Bottom line.
Well, I will say this. I mean, I think another issue with the Cowboys is they actually have been a pretty good drafting team, but they don't have the people in place right now to develop that talent. So it's like, if you're going to spend the money, you have to hit on your picks, and you don't have the right guys in place to develop your talent and develop your picks. And we kind of get what we're looking at now. So unless you had anything, I mean, I think that pretty much wraps it up. The Cowboys just do not look very good this year. So yeah, if you don't know ball, want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments if you think we're overreacting or if the Cowboys will make the playoffs.